not be the same as my past. The jobs of workers in our industries most affected by the U.S. tariffs in autos and steel and lumber are under threat.
In what can only be referred to as an underwhelming speech to the country, I didn't even know what was happening, but Prime Minister Mark Carney spoke to the nation in odd tones, Ottawa speak, very defeated, doldrums. What happened here? Let's find out. Hello, I'm Adrienne Batra. With me are Warren Kinsella, Laurie Goldstein, and Brian Lilly. I'm almost embarrassed to admit it, Brian, because we follow and we cover this stuff daily. I didn't know that Prime Minister Carney was going to address the nation, and it was pretty underwhelming. Okay, what happened here?
Well, so he was speaking to a group of students, and that happens all the time. So I wasn't paying much attention to it. I had a life to live last night, not just listen to what the PM's saying to a group of university students. But then I started seeing the reviews come in, and even from Liberals, it was damning. Jamie Carroll, used to be national director of the Liberal Party, said Carney looked like he would rather be doing anything than his job. He said he looked like he would rather be getting a root canal from a proctologist than doing his job in the middle of that. I know Warren's written about it and said horrible things. It was painful to listen to.
Yeah.
And I listened to a lot of bump from politicians of all stripes. Carney was off his game. I don't know what that was. It was cliche after cliche. Didn't say much except, well, you're going to have sacrifices, people. And young people, you're going to have to sacrifice. It reminded me, and I'm going to date myself, of course, I was too young to know about it then, Jimmy Carter's malaise speech. That's what this was from Mark Carney.
Well, that is a strong indictment, Warren. And, you have written about it for the Toronto Sun. Your assessment of it is not positive, shall we say.
Yeah, underwhelming to say the least. And, Amanda Galbraith, who is a Tory strategist, admittedly, but I think she had it right, because I've written speeches for prime ministers myself, and it looks like he got his hands on it. So, it was over 3,000 words, guys. Even if you read that fast, you're talking about half an hour. Mm-hmm. And it was internally contradictory, and it had Ottawa jargon in it, and it was fuzzy, and you couldn't figure out what lane he's in, as I send the piece. And I encourage everybody, buy the paper or subscribe to the paper. You can read it this weekend. You couldn't figure out if he's for deficits or against them.
That's right.
If he's for workers or against them. You couldn't figure out where he's at. And my hint that he got his hands on it is he used the word catalyze, and we all know he loves the word catalyze, and he spelled it the British way with an S instead of a Z, which should make all the editors on the call horrified. And it really didn't work. Mm-hmm. And that's a problem for him, because this speech, they're billing it as a historic, this budget rather, they're billing it as a historic one. He needed to do the pre-communications on it better than he did.
Laurie, it's unclear, and why this matters is because this budget is coming out in a couple of weeks, and it'll be his first budget, and then he's going to be traveling again. He's leaving the country yet again on another trip. But why it matters is because the bill that we were sold during the election, we go back to it, elbows up. This is the Liberals are the only ones that can get a deal with Donald Trump. The Liberals are the only ones that can manage to get another trade plan in the works. But even if you look at a minor amount of substance in what he said, he talked about wanting to double Canada's trade with outside of the United States. That's not a big number, quite frankly, and over the next 10 years. It's pretty meek. But I'm wondering, what was he trying to accomplish from this? Regardless of what the Liberal spinsters and the PMO is trying to say that's historic, there was doom and gloom. There was sacrifice. Is he trying to be austere? Is he trying to expand trade? I can't parse through it, Laurie.
To me, just as someone in the media, as opposed to someone who advises politicians, it's always good advice. If you're going to do that, if you're going to take up airtime, you got to have something to say. Mm-hmm. He didn't have anything to say. He said all this before, and frankly, during the election, said it much better. Look, we're 7 months in to this government. It is finally going to deliver a budget on November 4th. Given the expectations he raised during the campaign, you would expect that at this point, we would have a clear way forward of what our trade relationship with the U.S. is going to be. Because frankly, that's the key. We can double our trade in 10 years from exports to non-American markets. But the American market is so fundamental to our economy. We're seeing that now, right? 80% of our trade is with the United States. So you knock that down a little, so you get it down to what? It's over 75. So you get it down to 70. Okay, fine, good ideas. But the main issue is, how is his government handling our trading relationship with the U.S.? And to me, there's been nothing new. We've all remarked upon it. There was supposed to be a deadline in July for a trade deal. There was supposed to be a deadline on August 1st for a trade deal. Now we're hearing we might get sectoral deals in some areas of the economy, such as steel and aluminum, but not in five-alarm fire autos, the auto sector or the lumber sector. We've also been told now, basically by the Prime Minister, who's been lowering expectations, that when we get to the negotiations, the big one on the Canada-US-Mexico trade deal next year, it's that not all those tariffs are going to be removed. So to me, that's the damper on our economy right now. It's not just the tariffs, it's the uncertainty, right? Recently, we announced, I think, that we were moving further counter tariffs on the Americans, which caused a lot of the industries here to go, what are you doing? What are we getting for all these concessions? So to me, the upshot of the thing last night to me was that it was just irrelevant. It was irrelevant to the things Canadians care about. They want to know, when is this damper on our economy going to be? I mean, in other words, if the tariffs have to be higher, fine. But what we need is a deal. We need understanding. Like our industries need to plan for the future. So, to go to a university, tell young people times are going to be tough, I think most young people already know that.
Brian, it's the lack of confidence, the lack of forward thinking. Trust the banker, they said. Trust the financier, they said. He knows how to fix an economy and knows the numbers and understands all this stuff. But I will honestly say, what we saw presented last night does not instill confidence. He looks rudderless and near, I say, almost incompetent to the realities of what it means to run a government.
Well, his message could have been summed up by just altering a well-worn Canadian political campaign slogan: "Liberal times are tough times." He could have summed it up as that. I've made this point to Warren. I don't know how many times when I've been on his podcast. I don't know how many times I've said it to others. I want him to do what he said. Mm-hmm. And what he said the campaign was that we will think big, act bigger, move at speeds not seen in generations. If he does that, we succeed as a country. If he does not do that, we're just going to keep floundering. Laurie's right. More than 75% of our trade is with the United States. That is bigger than our trade with the British Empire at the height of the British Empire. 1896, we sent 66% of our goods to the British Empire at a time when the sun never set on the British Empire. We're more reliant on the U.S. for trade and defense now than we were with Britain back then. So yeah, we've got to fix it, but double it by 10 years? You know how we could double it real quick? If we started using the resources that we have, exporting them to Asia, exporting them to Europe. Quebec has a huge natural gas supply that they could be tapping into and sending as LNG to Europe to get them off Russian oil. We won't do that. Quebec won't allow it to happen. Mark Carney's not going to push it. We are tepid in the face of real problems, a real restructuring of the economy, and we continue to try and think that we can sloganeer our way out of it.
Warren, talk to me a little bit about sort of the dichotomy we see when we saw Carney and his cabinet ministers in the United States. There was a lot of jocularity, there was a lot of laughing, there was a lot of accolades towards President Donald Trump. Look, I get it. You're in his house. You don't want to be too aggressive. I understand all that. But then he comes and then he's back in Canada, and it's depressing. It's doldrums. It's an attempt at, trying to put those elbows back up. Paint that for me.
Well, you put your finger on the issue, and it's the question that a lot of reasonable people, including liberals, have got, which is, who is Mark Carney? Like, which Mark Carney are we going to get now? There was the Mark Carney who was a shadow advisor to Justin Trudeau, who helped preside over an explosion in the national debt and deficit and a government that had lost its way. Or are we going to get the guy we saw during the election campaign, who, as Brian pointed out and as Laurie pointed out, he was more compelling. He was much more direct. He was much more understandable. So right now, it looks like kind of a man who's deciding which lane he's going to be in. I think all of us know which lane he needs to be in. Government needs to be trimmed back. Mm-hmm. There needs to be a refocusing of the resources of government, because the threat we're facing is not just Donald Trump. The threat we're facing is not just tariffs. We're facing a global threat. He says it in the speech. We're in an increasingly dangerous world. We hear that a lot. Okay, well, then, Mark, what are you going to do about it? Yeah. And like in that 3,000-word speech, I am less certain about what he's going to do than I was when I started reading it. So who is Mark Carney? That's my question.
Laurie, last word to you. Sum this all up for us. If any Canadian watching that, I don't know why they would be, quite frankly. Everyone's focused on the Blue Jays. But if you're scrolling through and you see this speech from the Prime Minister, again, dubbed by his team and the PMO as consequential, was it?
Well, I would say on any statements by this government that are economic at the moment, look for the part that talks about our relationship with the United States, because right now that is what matters. And finally, very nice to say, sure, if we can double our trade with other countries in 10 years, that's great. But the Foreign Affairs Minister has just announced that we're going to have strategic partnerships with China. Like, wait a minute. Do you not understand what happened in this country with China over the past 2 or 3 years, when they kidnapped 2 of our citizens, when they are guilty not just in Canada but globally of industrial espionage, of intellectual property theft, of harassing? The whole China it wasn't just China; it was the Foreign Interference Inquiry. But these groups of Canadians of Chinese origin came to this committee and begged them to take seriously that Chinese agents operating in Canada are threatening them to do their bid. We still don't have, remember we were supposed to have a foreign lobbyist registry? Where's that? So, in other words, on any speech about the economy, what's it say about the United States? On anything about we're going to expand to other markets, which markets and why?
Well, Canada, Prime Minister Mark Carney's address to the nation didn't instill a lot of confidence. Well, let us know what you think in the comments below. Like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and go to thetorontossun.com.
So magawat may sa taxi.
Sneeze. The rain stop.
Is it raining? No, it's not raining, man.
No, it's rain. The rain has stopped.
The rain stopped?